So, what is a sociologist really supposed to do? Are they meant to be detached scientists, just observing society from a distance? Or should they be on the front lines, fighting to make the world a better place? This has been the central tug of war in sociology since the very beginning, and that's what we're digging into.
So let's just put the core question right out there. Can the science of society ever be totally 100% impartial? I mean, this question is at the heart of so much of the research you see, and it forces us to ask, is the point just to understand the world, or is it to change it? And this really breaks it down, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the world of science. It's all about objective facts, detached observation, describing things as they are. And on the other, you've got politics, which is driven by our values, by a commitment to action, and a vision for how things ought to be. The sociologist, they're trying to walk a tightrope right down the middle of these two worlds.
So, how do you walk that tightrope without falling off? Well, one of the most powerful ideas was to stop trying to balance and instead just build a fortress of objectivity designed to protect a truly value-free science from the messy world of politics.
And the chief architect of this fortress? None other than the legendary sociologist Max Weber. He famously said that the university lecture hall is no place for prophets or demagogues. His point was simple, but powerful. If you want science to have any integrity, you have to get the politics out of it. And this idea got a name: value neutrality. Now, this is a really crucial point. This isn't about sociologists having no values or opinions. That's impossible. It's about a professional duty, an obligation to recognize your own biases and do everything you can to overcome them in your research. Think of it like a shield, protecting sociology from being twisted into a political weapon. Okay, but this wasn't just some abstract theory debated in a quiet library. Oh no. In 1935, with the dark shadow of fascism spreading across Europe, Czech sociologists in Prague found themselves on the front lines of this exact debate. For them, this was very, very real. And you can just feel the urgency in this quote from a report on that Congress. I mean, imagine the scene. You have fascists and Democrats battling it out, and these Czech scholars are drawing a line in the sand. They're basically shouting, "No, this is political haggling. Our job is to be a theoretical science, to find the truth, no matter which political direction the wind is blowing." But as you can probably guess, that fortress of objectivity, well, it wasn't going to stand unchallenged for long. In fact, it was about to come under a massive siege from a powerful new critique. And then, in the 1960s, along comes Alvin Goldner. And he doesn't just knock on the fortress door, he basically takes a wrecking ball to it. With this absolutely unforgettable line, he declared that value neutrality wasn't some noble shield. He said it was a myth, a monster, a minotaur, lurking right at the very heart of sociology. So what was his beef exactly? Well, Goldner's argument was that claiming to be neutral is actually a deeply political act. You're just quietly accepting the world as it is, the status quo. He said it left sociologists with two terrible choices. Either you sell out to whoever has the money and power, or you run out and hide from the world's real problems in your ivory tower. For Goldner, the only way forward was to be a rebel, to be honest about your values and fight for them. And you've got to remember, this wasn't happening in a vacuum. The world was practically on fire in the 1960s, with the civil rights movement, with anti-war protests. People were in the streets demanding change, and they were looking at sociology and asking, how can you possibly be neutral about racism? How can you be objective about an unjust war? All of a sudden, trying to be neutral started to look like taking a side, the wrong side. Now, to really understand just how high the stakes could get in this intellectual battle, we need to return to our story from Prague. Because for Czech sociology, this wasn't just a debate, it was a matter of survival. Just take a look at this timeline. It is absolutely staggering. You see sociology born with all this hope as a tool to build a new nation, then bam, the Nazis shut it down. Then the communists come in and abolish it completely, calling it a bourgeois pseudoscience. You get this tiny, fragile glimmer of a rebirth, and then it's crushed again, until finally, after 1989, it can breathe again. So you see, for these scholars, the whole science versus politics thing wasn't some fun intellectual game. It was everything. The political ideology of the people in power determined whether you had a career, whether your work saw the light of day, or whether your entire field of study was even allowed to exist. So, is there a way out, a path forward? Is it possible to be scientifically rigorous without being completely silent on the great moral questions of our time? Well, a more modern approach thinks there just might be. And it's called public sociology. The core idea here isn't to throw objectivity out the window, and it's not about becoming a full-time political activist either. It's about finding a way to connect solid, rigorous research with real public conversations about the things that people actually care about. Sociologist Michael Burawoy came up with this really fantastic map to show how it all fits together. He basically says sociology has 4 different jobs. You can be speaking to other academics or to the public, and you can be providing instrumental knowledge, like solving a specific problem, or reflexive knowledge that makes us question our assumptions. This gives you professional, policy, critical, and, of course, public sociology. And Burawoy's big point is that a healthy discipline needs all 4 working together. And if you want to see a powerhouse example of public sociology in action, you don't have to look any further than feminist scholarship. Think about it. Feminist researchers did the hard academic work, but they didn't stop there. They took their findings about inequality at work and in the home and brought them directly into the public square. They started a two-way conversation that completely changed how we think and talk about everything from our jobs to our families.
But, of course, the story doesn't end there. Today, there's a new challenge, a new dragon to slay. And it might not be the state anymore. Many argue it's what they call the tyranny of the market, this relentless pressure on universities to act like businesses, to chase grant money, and to prove their immediate economic value above all else.
And this is where it all comes full circle. As Michael Burawoy argues here, in the face of these new market pressures, connecting with the public isn't just a nice idea anymore. It's a matter of survival. The only way for the university, and for fields like sociology, to prove their worth is to show that they are accountable and deeply relevant to the society they serve.
Which leaves us with a huge and maybe uncomfortable final question. When we're facing massive global crises, climate change, inequality, you name it, is the old ideal of a completely detached, purely neutral science a luxury that we just can't afford anymore? The sociologist's dilemma, it turns out, is more relevant and more urgent than ever.